your strength is also your weakness.
The better you are, the better it is. The worse you are, it's kind of the opposite effect.
So you got to stop doing some things and you got to start doing other things.
I'm honored to introduce Terry Blachek.
Those greatest ideas were not necessarily coming from the top of the organization.
Absolutely.
Remember that sometimes it slows you down, but when I go slow, I go faster because you're creating.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Diehard Entrepreneur Stories. I am your host, Devin Ramos, and today I'm honored to introduce Terry Blachek, a powerhouse in the fitness industry and one of the key figures behind the explosive growth of OrangeTheory Fitness. Terry is the former CEO of Austin Fitness Group, overseeing 133 OrangeTheory locations, 63 of which he fully owned and has since completely exited. He was instrumental in the early success of OrangeTheory Fitness, developing its signature pre-sale strategy and scaling it into a global brand. Over the years, he successfully built and exited multiple franchise locations, navigating private equity partnerships and leading large-scale business expansion. With over 30 years in the fitness industry, including leadership roles at Crunch, Lifestyle Family Fitness, and The Fitness Company, Terry is a wealth of knowledge on scaling businesses, leadership, and team development. Today, we'll dive into his journey of building a fitness empire, navigating challenges, and successfully exiting through private equity. Terry, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Devin. It's great to be here. I'm talking to you live from Tampa, Florida, where the sun is warm, the water's cool, and all the drinks are free when you hang out with me. So, Devin, as my personal guest, I want to invite you to come on down and visit me here in Tampa Bay.
I'm going to hold you to that. I'm actually going to head down there next month. So we will see you hopefully. Man, Tampa. Okay. I love it. So I was just telling you pre-show about getting some good weather here in Tennessee, but that meant nothing to you because you've had good weather all year long, with the exception of the hurricane, I guess.
It got a little cool. And unfortunately, our Bucks are out of the deal. You know, they lost that playoff game with the Washington Commanders. Unfortunately, the great game, last 2 minutes, not so good. But I'm looking forward to the Eagles. I'm a big Eagles fan. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I'm a big Eagles fan. So I'm looking forward to the Eagles coming through on Sunday.
Right on. All right. Well, go Eagles.
I hope they didn't offend anybody, any of your listeners, by the way.
Some of them, I'm sure, but they'll be okay. So, Terry, before we get into it, if you wouldn't mind, can you share a little bit about OrangeTheory Fitness, like big picture, what it is? You know, I know it's different than CrossFit, right? It's different than Planet Fitness. Can you really give our listeners sort of an explanation of its competitive advantage and a little bit about it?
Sure. You know, you got to remember, OrangeTheory Fitness started back in 2010, in March of 2010. And it was really, again, I'll just tell you the background story because I think it's a great story. If you don't mind, I'll just the background story.
Please do.
Kind of bleed into what it is. It was in 2009. I met this woman. Her name was Ellen Latham, and she had a Pilates. She'd been in the fitness business, and she had created a space about 7,500 square feet where she had a room for Pilates. She had a room for spinning, and women were doing Pilates. They were getting stronger, but they weren't actually losing weight. And so she created a spinning program, and then she wanted to create something else. She went to California, came back, and put a program with treadmills and rowers and the TRX straps that allow you to do a lot of different body weight exercises based upon your strength. And she created something called Ellen's Ultimate Workout. And as soon as the women started doing this, women and men both, but this, predominantly women, were doing this, they started to drop weight. And what this Ellen's Ultimate Workout was a high intensity workout that was both cardio and was also a strength training. And in essence, Ellen is an exercise physiology. And I say, if Ellen ever listens to this, a practicing exercise physiologist. We have that little internal joke between the two of us. But, you know, the program is based on science. And the science is based upon this concept called EPOC. And EPOC is excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. And basically, your body goes into oxygen debt when your body performs at a certain level. And if your heart rate gets to 84% to 92% of your predicted heart rate max. Your metabolism has this kind of overdrive reaction where it begins to go into overdrive, and it begins to burn more calories during the workout and for post-workout. Again, a lot of questions whether it's 24 hours post-workout, 36 hours, but the bottom line is you have a higher metabolic rate. You know this, when you're sleeping, your body's burning calories. This actually increases that, and that's what causes the weight loss for many folks. So the competitive advantage in OrangeTheory Fitness, we took Ellen's ultimate workout, we put it in another space. We were doing a name search, called it OrangeTheory Fitness. There's a whole story behind that and how we got the name OrangeTheory. But the bottom line was, called it OrangeTheory Fitness. And we said, we're going to try this concept. And we weren't sure if it was going to work or not. If you've never been in an OrangeTheory Fitness class, anyone listening, it's a 1 hour workout. It's half cardio, half strength. 26 minutes into it, you switch. Cardio goes to strength, strength goes to cardio. We have treadmills and rowers in there for cardio, and we have TRX and dumbbell racks for the strength training. There is a coach. All you need to do is show up. There's a coach. There's music. It's just like having your own personal training, but it's in a group setting. The coach tells you exactly what to do. And if you forget, there are templates up on the wall. There are video screens up on the wall that are actually showing you the movements or the exercises. We use commands like base, push, and all out. Base pace is something that you can do. It's comfortable, but you could maintain that for, 20, 30 minutes. A push is something that begins to get uncomfortable, but it's doable. You're a little uncomfortable, but you could do it. And an all out is just exactly as it says. Those are bouts of 30 seconds or 1 minute all out pushes. And so what we're doing is raising your heart rate up and bringing your heart rate down, and raising your heart rate up and bringing it down. The science tells us if you can spend 12 to 20 minutes inside of that zone, we call it the orange zone. We labeled it orange zone. But if you can spend 12 to 24 minutes, you have that increase in the metabolic rate. The results are phenomenal. People are losing weight. People are making friends. It's created and been its own community. And we first started it, Devin, we said if we could get 50 or 100 of these things open, we'd be pretty excited. We had incredible timing. The only other studio concepts in 2010, there was CrossFit was just out there. In 2010, there was yoga and Pilates studios, but the fitness concept inside of a studio had not really taken off. And so we were really first to market on fitness concepts with a science-based program taking off. In the first couple of years, nobody knew who we were. They called us Orange Therapy. They thought we were Orange Julius. They didn't know if it was going to work or not. We had one store the first year. We had, 12 stores in the second year sold. We had, 20 or 30, 40 stores open in the third year. And it wasn't really until the fourth year in 2014 that things really started banging and it really took off, and we got 120 stores. And then that doubled the next year, 240 and 500 and 600. We had 1,000 stores. Today we have over 1,500 locations. We're in 23 countries and we're translated in 5 different languages. It, in fact, has been an incredible success. And a lot of other groups have come in and tried to knock off the OrangeTheory concept or the studio concept now that we really prove that it's a workable thing. But what a great success story for me personally, but also for the brand. The brand is still strong. The brand is still good. It's still out there. It's still going hard. And it's kind of migrated as the industry. Sorry, this is longer than what you wanted to know, but as the fitness industry in a post-COVID environment has moved to a strength training, more strength training than a cardio format, OrangeTheory has come up with its own Strength 45, Strength 50 workout, a 50-minute, really oriented to strength training programs. So if you're in the market and you're looking to strength train, you're looking to lose some weight, you're looking to increase your metabolism, you want a certified coach, you want to be able to use a studio where you work and where you live or where you travel to, I'm telling you should check out OrangeTheory Fitness. We did to personal training. Personal trainers cost $50, $100 an hour. You can get the same results or better from OrangeTheory Fitness with a trainer, with a group of friends in a group environment, but not for $50 or $100 an hour. You can do that for $15 or $20 for the 1 hour because we're doing it in a group setting. So it becomes affordable. Affordable. Absolutely. Group personal training is still the key to what we do.
Absolutely. And it sounds like it's very cost effective as a business model as well, because you're doing it in a group like that.
Yeah. Well, the business model has changed a little bit, right? But, we can talk about that in terms of when your guys are all looking at business models, right? And one of the things I talk about is when you're looking at a business to buy or you're looking at a franchise to get in, you got to take a look at, is it a good business model? Does it make money, and does it have a proven concept? And proof of concept means that it not only makes money in one location, but a proof of a concept means that they've geographically opened up locations in different parts of the country, and it works there too. Some things work well in New York, but don't work well in Dallas, Texas. Some things work well in Chicago, but might work differently in Miami, Florida. So you've got to make sure that you've got a geographic footprint. And you don't need a ton of them, but you need, half a dozen, 12 of them in different markets, not collectively in markets, but you need to have them scattered in markets to prove that this concept is going to work on the East Coast, West Coast, warm climate, cold climate, etc.
I got it. So if I'm hearing you, you're basically testing a small piece of the various different ones. So, hey, this isn't just specific to Tennessee or the South or whatever.
Yeah, it's funny. Since I've exited OrangeTheory Fitness, I've probably looked at 60 different business plans and models and decks. I'm looking to get back into something. But one of the first things I look at, the three questions I ask is, first of all, what is it? What's the concept? What problem does it solve? And what's the business model? Does the business model work? And if it's a lot of times people come to the table and they got a great idea, but they don't have a model. They don't have a proven model. They say, this is going to do this, and this is going to do that, and this is good. Well, that's great. Show me. And I say this a lot. I don't want to necessarily be the first one in, and I definitely don't want to be the last one in. So I don't want to be the pioneer that takes all the arrows, right? I don't want to be that guy. But I definitely don't want to be the guy that never got in on it and I missed the opportunity, right? So proven concept, proven business model, what problem does it solve? And are you passionate about it? So anyway, sorry.
No, that's awesome. That's great stuff. I appreciate that. And Terry, I know that the fitness industry is something you're passionate about. You spent over 30 years in it. Looking back, what would you say, like one of the most unexpected lessons you learned maybe early on that still influences your approach to business today?
My involvement with the Crunch brand. Crunch was that was in the 90s. The Crunch brand was incredibly innovative and creative at the time. It was, there was a lot of fitness groups, but nobody had really created a brand, meaning it would be identified. A lot of times, whether you put, Devin's Gym or Terry's Gym or Gold's Gym or, Global Gym, the TV show there, or the movie, a lot of the gyms are the same. They offer a lot of the same. I got to tell you, in the gym business, one of the things is, what can you do that is uniquely different from the competition? And what makes you uniquely different? Otherwise, you are lost, being cliche here, but you get lost in the sea of sameness, right? A gym is a gym is a gym. The only one I use is the one that's close to me, so it's convenient. Yeah, that's nice. But is it really unique? And I would tell you that Crunch in the early days was incredibly unique, with firefighter classes and spin karaoke classes and peekaboo showers and the brands and the marketing that we did. It was a special brand. I would tell you that OrangeTheory Fitness was a brand very similar to that it was unique. We had our own language. We had something called splat points. Splat the fat. Nobody even knew what that meant. We had our own language. Nobody even knew what orange therapy or theory was, right? It created its own programs. So it became very unique. We used these orange bicycles around town. I rent and got Salvation Army. I bought orange bicycles. I painted them fluorescent orange, 25 bikes. One night, me and a buddy, we throw them in a pickup truck and we put them all around the hot spots in the high traffic areas in town. Everybody wakes up and goes, what's the deal with those orange bikes? And we didn't know if it was a bike share program or if it was an art project, but it got people thinking, and it was a unique approach to launching the brand. And in marketing, you know this, Devin, share of mind, if you can get people thinking about it, is share of market. So we had people thinking about the orange bikes, and then we did a massive direct mail piece to our local community, 3-mile radius. It said, what's the deal with the orange bike? Picture the orange bike on the front, flip it over, new fitness concept coming to town, backed by science, no long contract, blah, 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 affordable group personal training. And that was what really kicked us off. But I got a little sidetracked there. I got talking about a lot of different things, but
a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. Just kind of gives you some background on the brand itself. And as people are looking into brands, do you have a proven concept? Is it going to work? And the scariest thing about being an entrepreneur or starting a business was, you get an idea, especially on the front end of it, and you invest a lot of money to open up a location. The biggest question you have to yourself is anybody going to buy this damn thing? Was anybody going to pay me memberships? But where I was going with all of that was the uniqueness. How do you create a difference? And how are you unique compared to your competition? If you're going to be the same, I would tell you don't do it. You got to have something that's incredibly unique, and that's hard to do. It's harder than you think to do.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were first talking about the business model, you're mentioning everything about it from, hey, it's a small studio to it's science-backed. It actually works. You get results. It's community-based. Don't need personal trainers because you're getting the accountability together. You're getting the training all together. Like all these things, looking at it, from what I know of the fitness industry and in my involvement, that is something that really sticks out that I really haven't even seen replicated. And so thinking about this, you talk about uniqueness. Would you say like the uniqueness of the brand is probably the most valuable thing about a company, or how would you phrase that?
I don't know if it's the most valuable. I think it's in the top 3 or 5 valuable pieces. So you look at the groups, and just anybody can do this. You can go and you can say, what are the groups that have tried to knock off OrangeTheory? And so, there are groups out there that do boot campy type of group classes. But they don't incorporate the heart rate monitoring, or they don't incorporate the unique marketing appeal that we had with orange morph men and orange bicycles and orange tutus, not orange tattoo, but orange tattoo. So it's a funny story. So I said tattoo because we have members and employees that early on and even recently have gone out and gotten tattoos. The orange logo, the splat, the O and the orange. Right. They get the tattoo on an arm. They'll get it on their back. They'll get it on the back. They'll carve it in the side of, carve it out of their hair in the side, paint that little orange thing. Right. We really do have a cult following for the brand. And again, I wish I could say that was all planned. It wasn't. It happened. It was timing. We had something good that happened at the right time, the right place.
I appreciate your candor for sure. With that, you said it wasn't so much pre-planned. What was the vision when you first started opening locations? Were you guys like, hey, we've got a proven model. Let's add all these locations all the way to exit? Or what was that vision, and how did it really come about to being what it is now, like being in 23 countries, like all those locations, all that stuff?
I think, it evolved. I don't think it started with that, thinking that it was going to be this big. I think it evolved. The first, and I say this a lot too. I think this is important. If you're listening, and you have these ideas, if you have $1 million business and you're trying to grow it to 5 million, if you have a 5 million trying to get to 10, or 10 trying to get to 20, or 20 trying to get to 50 or 100, whatever the number is, I would tell you my counsel. And again, this is one guy from Tampa. I used to say one guy from Texas because I lived in Texas the last 10 years, but right. One guy from Florida is, nail it before you scale it. And that was really critical for us in the OrangeTheory model, is to get one location that was really working well. Our very first store in Fort Lauderdale did very well. The stores up here in Tampa did very well and created a blueprint for, as you mentioned in your introductions. Thank you very much. It was very kind of you to say those things. But the pre-sale pieces, the sales process, the culture and the core of that particular brand, a lot of that came out of the footprint in those early stores, which were, and I would tell you those were probably the first 10 to 20 locations, was really how this brand really kind of got legs. Because we were beta testing and trying. I mean, the truth of the matter is, you go into an OrangeTheory today and you hear us talk about heart rate based interval training. In the first year, we didn't have heart rate training. We didn't have vision boards or TV screens with stuff. I mean, we taught our coaches how to write a high intensity workout, and every coach wrote the same, on a white grease board. They would write the program. Nobody was doing heart rates. And then we used this concept we heard about was being used in athletic centers called Polar. You know, heard of the Polar watches? Or heart rate systems?
I'm familiar. Yep.
Yeah. So we took the Polar system and adapted that to what we were doing. And so for 2012 and 2013, we had Polar, and we were using that concept inside of our business. You didn't buy a heart rate monitor. You'd get one when you came in for the workout. You would use one. We would have to charge them up, and you know, we had straps, and you would put the strap on, and we would wash the straps and dry the straps. And sometimes you get a wet strap. It was like not somebody else's wet bathing suit is what it was like. I'll tell you.
I can imagine.
These are the real stories. I'm telling you, these are real stories. Yeah. And so the truth is then we took that Polar and we got it re-engineered, and we ended up creating our own. We call it OT Beats today. OrangeTheory Beats, which is the heart rate monitor. And we've gone through different renditions of that, from a wrist thing to a shoulder strap, a forearm strap, to a chest strap. We're looking at all kinds of wearables. And you got to remember, this is in 2010, 2013. 15 years ago, I know it sounds like it wasn't, you know, for me, I'll look back and it went by quick. But 15 years ago, heart rate technology was a thing. That was one of our unique offerings. Today, you buy an Apple Watch. I'm looking at the watch you have on your wrist. I don't know if it's an Apple Watch or not.
It is.
But you have a heart rate monitoring on your Apple Watch today. That wasn't like that 15 years ago. And so the heart rate monitoring becomes less significant as a USP today, but it was definitely significant in us getting launched off the ground. Are USPs one of the biggest things? It's in the top 5. Is it the biggest? I don't know that it's the biggest, but it's one of the most important. It's in the top 5 important things of being uniquely different and something different to offer to the marketplace.
That's awesome. And it sounds like you're talking about the evolution of OrangeTheory Fitness, and it's still continuing to do those things. Just try to stay at the forefront.
So the question, do we have this master plan from the beginning? No, we said 50 or 100, we'd be excited. What 50 or 100 led into this explosion about 3 years into it, this explosion of drinking from a fire hose in terms of people wanting to open up more stores. And a lot of that came from our membership base. People were members of studios and said, I want one of these. I want to do one of these. I want to do one of these. That exploded. Then in 2015, we had the parent company, had got some interest in private equity, right? Institutional money and private equity. And so as soon as private equity got in and participated in, bought into the parent company, that gave us additional capital to expand, to create, to evolve our technology, to evolve our workout programs, to evolve our facility plans. That just added gas to the fire. And so in 2015, 16, 17, and 18, there was a frenzy. I mean a frenzy around OrangeTheory Fitness. And the frenzy also then started to happen when they saw one private equity company get involved. Other private equity wanted to be involved in the health and fitness sector. There's different levels of private equity, small companies, small to medium, medium to mid-size to larger companies. And that's based around the size of funds they have, right? How big is the fund that they have to spend? But we were getting some significant groups. Rourke Capital out of Atlanta was the very first group that got involved with the parent company. And then multiple groups fell into place after that. And today, if you took a look at 1,000 stores domestically, there's probably 10 what we call platform groups. The platform groups are where private equity has gotten involved, created a platform, and then they've gone out and either expanded or acquired the smaller mom and pop franchisees and brought them into their fold. And so in your announcement today, when you said 135, that's kind of what we did. I started with 18, 20 locations. Private equity got involved with me, called me a platform, and then we went out and started to grow and expand and open new stores, but also purchase and buy other territories. We bought Arizona, Kansas, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Jersey, 7 states, 7 territories. And then within those markets, we would purchase and buy the franchisees to become a bigger entity. And just again, to go back to that, why is private equity interested? Private equity is interested in getting in so that they can actually grow something at their level. And then what the small guys do is sell their companies to the midsize. The midsize guys sell it to the bigger guys. And what are they looking for? They're looking for white space. They're looking for growth. They're looking for, opportunities to multiply as long as that brand is still a viable brand or a viable business. So the big fish eat the small fish, I guess is a good way to put that.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Oh, over and over and over again. So I think you said did you say over 1,500 stores globally?
1,500 globally, about 1,000 domestic.
Okay. So just rough numbers here. Are most of those predominantly held by private equity at this point?
Probably, we would say 45, maybe 55% at this point, 45 to 50%. 55%, I think, is probably the right number that are held through. When I say private equity, it's a combination of private equity and individuals like myself that would all have ownership in those stores and those locations. Yeah.
Okay. And if I heard you correctly, it sounds like the franchise portion sort of came from the demand. You said from a lot of the members just wanting to figure out, hey, how can I get my hands on a location?
Yeah, I think, I think that was, the franchising of the concept, I think, was one of the early, you talk about a master plan, but both Dave Long and Jerome Kern were really the masterminds behind the franchising of this particular brand. They both had been involved in franchising in Massage Envy, European Wax Center, and a couple other businesses. They were the ones that really said, listen, we want to create a concept that can be franchised. When I first took a look at Ellen's concept, and she had Pilates and spinning and Ellen's workout, I wanted all three of those. I wanted to use that and to open up a lot of those stores. I think it was really the brain power of Dave and Jerome that said that's too complicated for the average person, for staffing and to all those you got to get Pilates instructors and spinning instructors and coaches. Let's keep it simple. Let's dummy it down to third grade level. Let's keep it one single concept. Make it as simple as possible. And I can't tell you how powerful that is for people who are listening, is how do you keep a simple business process, because it's easier to duplicate. It's easier to grow. But I think that was one of the geniuses of OrangeTheory in the early days. Dave and Jerome really understood franchising. They understood the area development model, the franchising, and they used that model to really grow and expand. That was one of the things that was from the very beginning.
Wow. And it sounds like I heard a lot of, hey, we had an initial plan. We tried things over and over and over again, and then just kind of put one foot in front of the other and kept doing what works. I mean, that's really what I'm hearing.
If you got a business, one of the things is your strength, Devin, and the people listening, your strength is also your weakness. We have success in our business lives, and we refer to that business success and say, well, that must be the way that we want to do things. Sometimes what that does is it narrows our focus and we're not open to other ideas. I would tell you that I would remind all of us that our strength, as good as it is, can also be one of our greatest weaknesses, of being so focused and thinking that we know how things should be done, that we don't accept outside ideas. And the great ideas in the first 3 or 4 or 5 years of OrangeTheory Fitness, those greatest ideas were not necessarily coming from the top of the organization. They were coming from people, franchisees. They were coming from coaches. They were coming from front desk people. They were coming from management staff. And this is what else in the franchise world, having a franchise area committee or franchise teams come in and provide you kind of feedback about what's working, what's not working, what could be better, what could be worse. I think that's incredibly meaningful for the growth, to be able to zig and zag and not be so narrow-minded. I hear a lot of I'm looking at deals right now, and I hear a lot of franchisees that say, no, this is exactly how you do it. And they have, 10 locations open. And I would say to that group, without naming names, I would say, you're being a little bit too rigid in terms of what you're looking at. And because of that, number one, you're going to piss off all your franchisees. You're not listening. You have the potential of not really maybe being as big as you think you're going to be, because you're not open-minded. You're just too narrow. And the reason they do that, and they do it for good reason, is they do it because they're trying to get compliance and they don't want variations of the brand. I think OrangeTheory did an incredible job in the early years of listening, opening up the innovative practices to a larger group of people and soliciting those feedback and then modifying and making changes accordingly. And that kept us innovative. It kept us creative, so that it was never that, in 2015, it was a much different product than it was in 2010. In 2018, it was a different product than it was in 2015. It just kept growing and evolving and evolving. So important to keep innovating, keep listening to your customers, keep listening to your franchisees, keep listening to your team. If you own everything and you don't have a franchise, listen to your team. I call it how to get better meetings. I love these kind of meetings where you as the CEO or the leader, whoever, whatever role you have, is have a how to get better meeting. What are the things you want to keep doing? What are the things you want to stop doing? It's the beginning of the year. You can't just keep saying we're going to add to the plate, add to the plate, add to the plate. It starts falling off the plate. You can't get it all done. So you got to stop doing some things and you got to start doing other things.
That's good. That's good, Terry. And what a balance it is. You talked about it's important to stay focused, not be all over the place, especially as I feel like it's something within entrepreneurs. We tend to want to be all over the place, all these different ideas, all these different initiatives and things. It's important to be focused, but at the same time, not closed-minded and be open. I love that.
The entrepreneurial spirit, not funny. I had a call this morning, right, with this guy. This is a true story. I just had a call this morning and I said to this guy, I said, you're the gas. Because I understand I'm an entrepreneur, but I also have modified some of my thinking based around being with a larger company and being with private equity. You see, private equity is risk adverse. Private equity tends to be more conservative. Private equity wants to check the box to make sure that the due diligence is done, the site memos are complete, the forecasts are complete, that every box is checked before we move forward. And for me personally, that was very difficult because I would go, what's the probability of success? And I was betting on myself, right? And when you have a group of people and a board and a private equity group, they felt like the brakes for me as a private entrepreneur. I was the gas, man. I'm like, go, let's grow. It doesn't matter. I can grow. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this.
Yeah.
Even though they believed that we could, they would say, I believe you. I just want to do the due diligence and make sure, it's like buying a home. You buy the house, you walk in the house the first time, you love the house, you and your wife, they love the house. But then you say, well, we want to make sure that we're buying and we're getting the value. So what do you have to do? You have to do the inspection. And you got to do a structural inspection, and you got to do the home inspection, and you got to do the pool inspection, and you got to do the termite and the pest inspection. And all of a sudden, and everything comes out fine, and you go, fantastic. But inspections slow you down. You see, if you didn't do all those inspections, you can go really fast, but the house might fall apart from termites as soon as you, a year or two after you bought it, and there goes the investment. Nobody wants that. You don't want that to happen as an entrepreneur. So remember the gas and the brakes analogy. Remember that sometimes it slows you down, but when I go slow, I go faster because you're creating process, systems. Good people with good process create systems for you to actually go and be sure that you're duplicating, that you're replicating, and you've got a good plan, a good business model. And you're not just going, hey, we really like Oklahoma. We're going to get involved, open up a store in Oklahoma. And all of a sudden you go, well, there's only 2 things that come out. No, just kidding. Anyway,
another good one. That's some good insight there. So Terry, thinking about that and some of the earlier days, what are some of the biggest struggles or the biggest bottlenecks that you remember walking into, and if you could share just some of those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, capital. Capital was, for me personally, capital was a big one, right? When I first started, I didn't have the money. I wanted to do this, but I didn't have the money. And so I go, how am I going to, my head got wrapped around, how am I going to get the money to do what I want to do? And many of you, and many of your listeners may be in that situation. They see a good concept. They believe it's a good business model. It solves a business problem, but they don't have the money. How do you get the money? And so I'll just share with you, my first 5 or 10 locations at OrangeTheory were with partners. I did partnership deals and I was the expert, but, and I put some money in, but they got a piece. I had to get them to buy into an idea or a concept in the business model. And so there's tons of people out there with a lot of money that are looking for opportunity and how to invest their money. Are they going to put it in the stock market? They're going to put it in, there's so many different, real estate, stock market. They're going to put it into a business equities. How are they going to invest that money to get the return? But I'm just telling you, capital was a restriction for me. It was one of my biggest concerns. And so I started with partnerships. And so early partnerships for me, I had, because I was the expert, but I wasn't putting in as much money, I still maintained a minority interest. And the more stores I got and the more confidence and the better the business, the stores performed, I then went from 35 or 40% minority share to 45 to 55% to 60 and 75 and 85%. And so all of a sudden I became the majority interest holder in future locations, but not in the early ones. I was always the minority guy. I had to prove myself. So I would tell people, let's say you need $1 million to open up a single location, whatever that kind of business that is. And you don't have $1 million. You go, how do I finance $1 million? So you can get a couple partners to put some cash in, and you put some cash in. You can get the landlord to throw in tenant allowance money when you build a space, right? That helps to finance. You can finance your equipment, right? Instead of buying and purchasing your equipment. So you might say it's going to be $1 million of capital, but if you get the TI money of a couple $100,000 and you get equipment, you have $300,000 or $200,000 of equipment and you get that financed, all of a sudden now your capital requirements might only be $400,000. So let's say you got $400,000, you got three partners, remember, you don't have to put the same amount of money in that your partner does because you're bringing something else, operational expertise to the table. So get each of those guys to put in $150,000 each. So that's 300. You needed 400. They put in 150, and you put in 100. I'm just saying, or it could be whatever. But then the percentages of ownership are never equal because you're bringing operational expertise. It's a longer story than that, but I'm just telling you is there are ways to do that. And then as time went on, I really didn't need 3 or 4 partners. I only needed one partner to put some cash in and then run it. And then as you get more secure, your guarantees, your personal guarantees become much different. It just changes over time. But capital definitely is one of the struggles that I went through early on. It got better as I went along, but it took me 2, 3, 4 years. My deals in Austin were much different than my deals in Tampa. My deals in Tampa, I was minority. My deals in Austin, I was majority. And many times I didn't need the guys in Tampa. I didn't need the partners as much. And then when I did private equity, really private equity becomes your partner. And then they use their credit and their wherewithal to go out and create either debt or equity to put into the business to expand. And we use their capital and their leverage to grow the business. So you don't really need other partners after that point. So that was a struggle. I think the other struggle that I see today, and it was also for me, and I hadn't dealt with before, is I had been involved in big box gyms and health clubs where we owned them all.
They're all corporate stores.
Yeah, corporate stores. I was never really involved in a franchise, even though Crunch, most people know Crunch today as a franchise. When I was involved with it, we owned all the stores. That was in the early days of Crunch. In the 90s, we owned all the stores. We sold that to Bally's Total Fitness in 2001. And then Bally's held it for a couple of years and then went back, sold it off. They were not successful with the Crunch brand. They sold it back. And then Crunch became this franchise model that we know today in terms of what it is. So it changed a little bit. But when I was with Crunch, we owned them all. When I was with Lifestyle Family Fitness, we owned them all. When I was with the fitness company, we owned them all. Being involved in a franchise concept, one of the things you have to understand as an entrepreneur, as excited as you are, when you buy a franchise, what are you buying? You're buying an operational manual and a system and a blueprint that basically says, if you follow the recipe, it'll go accordingly. It's like baking a chocolate cake. I talk about that. If you follow the recipe to bake a chocolate cake, it turns out to be a pretty good chocolate cake. If you don't follow the recipe and you just throw all the ingredients and set the temperature and whatever you want, throw it in a pan and don't mix it up, it probably ain't going to turn out like a good chocolate cake for you, right?
Right.
The reason we do franchising is because of the blueprint, because of the model. The problem with that most people don't understand is because it's their money and it's their time and their effort. They think that they can get this business, they can use the blueprint, but they can do it the way that they want to do it. And the truth of the matter is when you're dealing with franchise models or franchisors, the franchisor wants to maintain the integrity of the brand. And therefore, they have the final say on how things get done, how things get sold, what the processes are, what the inventory control, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of times entrepreneurs aren't used to having mom or dad or the principal. It feels like the principal sometimes over top of you with the rules. They don't like that a lot of times. There's a lot of struggle sometimes with that. Compliance, as I would call it. So that was an early struggle for me as well. I wanted to do my own thing. I felt like I had an idea. They had some good ideas, but my ideas were better. That's not true, but in my own mind, I thought that, but, any case, that was an early struggle. Capital franchising was an early struggle. I think for a brand that's just getting started, for us, nobody knew who the hell we were. So getting the name out there and getting people to even know that, this was a viable brand, They thought we were selling orange juice or orange ice cream at the time. Nobody knew what OrangeTheory was.
Right. Yeah. I remember you talking about the very successful pre-sale process. Was that a significant problem that you were solving that resulted in that process, or where did that come into play?
Well, me being in the fitness industry for years before OrangeTheory, I had always been involved when we opened up a new location, I'd always been involved in a pre-sale, signing people up on a founder rate prior to the actual physical plant opening. When we opened the first store down in Fort Lauderdale, we didn't do a pre-sale. It's like a restaurant. Think about this. Think about opening a restaurant. We've all had this situation, right? You walk into a restaurant, you hear this is a really good restaurant, you walk in and nobody's there. And you go like, maybe they're not ready. Maybe they're not quite ready for me. Maybe I should come back another time, right? And then you've also gone into a place that just opened up and it's packed. There's lines out the door and you go, wow, this place has the energy. The food must be fantastic, all this kind of stuff. The fitness business is very similar to that you want to open up with a lot of energy and a lot of people. So you don't open your doors with nobody there, and try to build it. An OrangeTheory class, if you're the only one in an OrangeTheory class in a 60-minute workout, it's pretty damn boring. But you put 36, 24, 36, 54 people in a class, and all of a sudden the energy and the excitement and the music, it's banging, right? It's banging. You love it. There's nothing better in the world than being in a full OrangeTheory class with energy like that, right? So the concept there was we opened the first one and I was like, that was wrong. And we knew better than that, but things were happening relatively quickly and we wanted to get it open. So when I opened up my store in, Tampa, St. Pete, we did a 3 or 4 month pre-sale process. We were able to stair step the prices early on. The earlier you joined, the better rate that you got. And then it went up and went up and went up until you got your retail or your rack rates when you opened. But a lot of that was a combination of, we call it digital marketing and a lot of what we call street team marketing. Street team marketing are things like the orange bikes. It's belly to belly, nose to nose, and toes to toes. It's making friends with the community. It's getting involved in the farmers market. It's getting involved with the charity programs. It's getting involved with the local events. It's getting involved with the local vendors. It's getting involved with the local restaurants and, letting people know that we're your neighbor, we're your next door neighbor, we're in the community. It's getting involved with all of the localized things that a lot of times the big companies, they never do that. If you look at the big national companies, they never really spend the time in the grassroots getting involved. And that's how we actually built OrangeTheory Fitness, was through grassroots marketing, belly to belly, nose to nose, and toes to toes, word of mouth marketing, people telling their friends, bringing their friends, great referral programs to incentivize our existing people to bring their friends and family members. That was a big piece of it.
I love that. That very, very much so resonates with me. In my cleaning company, which isn't a fraction of what you've built, but I've seen a really good response the same way. It's huge. There's a lot of trust that has to happen in order to be able to consistently clean people's houses and allow them to let us in. And so a lot of that belly to belly stuff has been great. And when you're good, it's almost binary. Like the better you are, the better it is. The worse you are, it's kind of the opposite effect.
Yeah. So what you would want to do, and maybe you're doing all this, but what you would want to do is you want to have a methodology or a process or a system that your cleaners or the people that are working your business have a process or a methodology for your clients to tell their friends or their family members about your services. And how do they give you a good review? Number one, how do they do that? And are they incentivized to do that? How do they tell your friends and family, their friends and family, that, listen, if you're looking for a good house cleaner or keeper, or landscaper, I'm not exactly sure of all your services because I think you provide a lot, but who should they talk to? And opening up a pathway for your clients to refer their friends and family. Imagine, just for a moment, anybody on this call, imagine if all of your clients referred one person that signed up with you, how you could double your client base that quickly. And what would that do for your revenues and profits? Amazing, right? Yeah, it's huge.
And the other thing we've noticed too is like people tend to hang out together. So when our good customers do that, they're referring another good customer. Like they're referring people like them that we want to keep doing business with. So that's also been a benefit for us as well. So Terry, at what point did private equity come into play? Was that sort of like you got to a point, you were talking about capital constraints and a group of you decided to go that route, or was some of the other franchisees doing it? Or tell me a little bit about that.
So there was this frenzy. You remember I told you from 15 to 19, there's this frenzy going on around OrangeTheory Fitness. When I first started OrangeTheory Fitness, I said, I'll open up 3 stores. They'll be $1 million stores, meaning $1 million in revenue. They'll do 30 or 35% margin, EBITDA margin, and $350,000 a store, and I'll make $1 million. And I go, that's good for me for the rest of my, and that expanded. And when I saw that the stores were doing well, I go, shit, why stop at 3? Let's go for 5. Let's go for 10. So I opened up, a group of stores in 10 plus stores in Tampa, sold those. Then I go to Austin. I opened up 18 locations. And when I was doing that, I was going, how do I, you can either reinvest and get bigger and bigger and bigger, or, and again, this is really important. Everything that I'm saying today, I can't tell you how important this is. What I'm about to say is everybody needs to find a mentor. You need to find, and I call it my advisory team. For me, I have 5 people that are on my personal advisory board. I don't pay them, but these are guys that have been down the road before, that know business, that know legal, that know private equity. I hadn't had that experience. And so I wanted to have them help me. And so whenever something would go on in my business, I would use them as a sounding board. I had 5 different people. There was one gentleman that was very significant and played a big role in terms of his helping me to find private equity and taking me down that path. Why do we want to do this? Because you never know. It's just like, how long does the housing market keep going up and up and up? At some point, maybe you want to exit or take some cash off the table. And that was kind of the advice I was getting, was it's time to take, so here's the idea. The businesses that are making money today, and I'll speak to the fitness business, but this is called the life cycle of a business. I just explained this to a couple of my apprentices last week. Life cycles of business. The life cycle of a business is, the infancy stages, growth, go-go phases, and then they plateau, and then typically they'll drop off, right? But how long is that life cycle? Most businesses have a 10-year life cycle. When I started OrangeTheory Fitness, people said, how long is this going to last? I said, 10 years. They said, it's a fad. It'll never last. I said, it'll go good for 10 years and it'll always be around, but it's going to go strong for 10 years. In any case, that was from 2010 to 2020. COVID hit in 2020. We had some problems in 2020, but the bottom line was, think about the life cycle of a business. How long can it really have this fast growth pace? And so the companies that are making money today, even in the fitness business, were not even around or making money 10 years ago in 2014 or 2015. The companies that were around and doing very well in 2010 or 2012, 2014 aren't doing as well today in the fitness business, right? My point is, how do you get in a business? How do you grow a business and exit the business before it gets to the plateau? So that's what I was thinking about. So what was happening, big frenzy going on. I'd opened up 18, 20 stores and I said, how can I take some cash off the table? My friend said, let me help you with this. He helped me put a plan together. He helped me look at the plan. He helped me get an investment banker that put a deck together. And then we went out and we started meeting with private equity groups, right? So in that whole, how did that all happen? It happened with having a good mentor. It happened with somebody who had been down the road before me. It happened with looking at the life cycle of a business. It happened with growing a business and saying, how long am I going to do this? How long will this last? And it's hard when you're in here, it's hard to pull your head above the gopher hole and look around and see what's going on. But that's why you need a mentor that can help snap you out of it and lift you up and say, wait a minute, let's take a look. I'm really looking out for your best interest, Devin. I'm going to help you out here. It's time to pull your head up. We need to start talking about how do you find somebody to buy into your business so you can take a big chunk of cash off the table. And I had the help with doing that. That led me to an investment banker. That investment banker then led me to a debt. We put a deck together. That led me to shopping the business. That led me to interviewing different private equity firms that were interested. And then that led me to narrowing that down to 2 or 3. And we finally closed a deal with a single entity. And I didn't want to get out of the business, but I did want to take some cash off the table. And I'm telling you, I did that in 2018, just a year before COVID. It was the best thing I ever did. I would have never gotten that cash if I'd have waited till after 2020. And so I sold 65% of my business. I then further got diluted, right? In that, but I sold 65. And so I got to take a big chunk of that off the table. A lot of people say, how do you know when it's time to talk to private equity? I'll tell you, private equity needs to see most of the time somewheres in the range of $3.5–4 million to $5 million of EBITDA before they will consider you as a platform group or somebody that they want to invest some money in. So let's just do the math. And every industry is a little different, if the multiple on your business is 3 to 5 times EBITDA and you're doing $5 million of EBITDA and you get a 3 times multiple, that means they would buy into your company or they would value your company at 15 million. If you're doing 5 million of EBITDA and you get a 5 multiple instead of a 3 multiple, now your company's worth 25 million, right? So, I was at a $5 million EBITDA and they wanted to use me as a platform. And so they gave me a 10 multiple. It was huge for me. It was big. Now, I didn't sell all of that. I sold a portion of that. 65% of that allowed me to take some cash, but they also don't. Remember, private equity guys don't have the expertise to run the business. Yeah, they don't know how to run a fitness business. So they need somebody to do that. So they said, Terry, would you be willing to stay on? So now I own 35% of my own company, less. I am the CEO they put an employee contract together. They pay me a salary to be the CEO, to run the company. I now have a board of directors. I now have weekly calls. I now have monthly board meetings, all that kind of stuff, So the good news for me is it allowed me, and this was a group that was great. That's why I say, partnership is like a marriage. Make sure you get the right partner. So, this group for me, Clearlight, Capital Partners out of Orange County was an incredible group for me. They did phenomenal. They were a great partner for me from the beginning, the middle, and the end. They allowed me to run the business and they really acted as the counselor, the advisor, the senior team to check the boxes. They were a little bit of the brake sometimes. I was the gas, but it was a good, yin and yang for me to have a better run business, a more stable, a more predictable business. That's what I tell you about private equity and the guys that take the time to check the boxes. Your business becomes much more predictable when you go through all of those processes and forecasts and valuations than it does if you just go, yeah, this feels good.
Yeah, that's good. In real estate on a much smaller level, a lot of times we say that's the good thing about institutional money is because they have requirements like that. So sometimes it forces you to hit the brakes and be more conservative where you might play it fast and loose with the deal. You can't do it with their money. So it's one of those like extra checks you have. So I totally hear that. Now, Terry, what would you say to somebody who's considering finding an investment banker and going down that route? What would be, if you could give them just like one piece of advice, what would it be before going that route and doing a deal with a private equity firm?
I think number one is find an investment bank, understand what size of a deal that you've got. In other words, is your investment banker a guy that does $100 million deals, or $500 million deals? I don't know. Or is your investment banker a guy that does $20 or $50 million deals? See what they've done. How many deals have they done and what size deals have they done? You want to find out, and then look at your EBITDA number, figure out what the multiple for your industry would be, right? For the fitness industry, it's, depends on the number of locations, but it's probably a 5-6 multiple you could get on the fitness business. If you have larger platform groups, your multiples go up. But what's the multiple going to be? So figure out how big your deal would be. Then look for an investment banker that does those size of deals and somewhat related to your particular type of business. So don't get somebody that does a production business. If you're a service-based business, don't get an investment banker that does a lot of manufacturing types of things, right? Get somebody who's done a lot of service-based businesses and sit down and talk to them about what they think and what would they need and what would this look like and who their list of potential buyers might be or what the process would be for them. I'm just telling you, you'll learn a lot. Even if you don't know a lot, you'll learn a lot just by talking to 3 or 4 different investment bankers before you decide. Make sure they're doing your size of deals, making sure they're in your sector or your industry. They understand that. And because they have all the connections for folks and private equity groups that are looking to invest in that particular industry. That's why it's just a faster road.
Yeah, no worries. That's good. I hear that loud and clear for sure. Look at multiple investment bankers, find the right one, take your time.
Yeah. And find out, the question you're really going to have to ask yourself is, do you want a full exit or do you want a partial exit? Do you really want to just get out of the business altogether? Or do you want to stay in the business and keep 25 or 30% of the business and run the business? Because that's going to be a different group that wants that, right? Sometimes what happens is businesses grow. I would just say this because, it's true. Sometimes businesses outgrow their owner or their founder. And so the business gets bigger than them. And it's hard for entrepreneurs that are in a startup phase to really think about what it looks like for a 100-unit business on a national basis. You don't think that way. You're not thinking of those types of things. And that's what we call scaling the business. And are you the guy that can really scale a business? Or are you better at starting a business, getting it to a certain level and then exiting it and then getting back and starting another business?
That's good. That's some wisdom. That's
know
really
your strengths, right? Know what you're good at. Know what you're good at.
Absolutely. Now, Terry, as we start to wrap up here, I know you sold a portion, became the CEO, ran it for a while, but now you are completely out of it, completely exited. How's that been for you, and what's on the horizon now?
Yeah, I think, I would call it being on the sidelines a little bit. I feel a little bit like a man with no country, emotionally very hard. That OrangeTheory was my baby. I was committed to it for 15 years. I started it. I grew it. I grew the people, developed the organization. It was a big thing for me in what I was doing. And, when I left, it was emotionally stressful, but it was the right decision and it was at the right time. It was time for me to move on and look for new things. It took me time to transition. It took me good 3, 4, 5 months to really transition, get my head out of it. When you're used to getting a lot of emails and you're used to getting a lot of calls, and then all of a sudden you wake up in the morning, you check your email and there's nothing there, and you check your phone and there's nothing there, and you're like, well, now what? So I had the inverse of time management. Time management is when you have too many things and you don't have enough time. I had too much time and nothing to do. I was bored out of my mind. I would encourage you, when you got anybody that's thinking about exiting or partial exiting or any of that stuff, is you need to be thinking about what's next in terms of, what's your life going to look like in an exit, in terms of, do you have hobbies? Do you have things that can keep you busy? Do you like to exercise? Do you like to play golf? Do you like to play tennis? Do you like to travel? What is that going to look like? And is that going to be satisfying or fulfilling? One of the things about being in business is very fulfilling and rewarding to grow a business, to grow people, to see people advance, get promoted, to see open up new locations, to see the business grow, right? And so when you don't have that, you have to find opportunities for fulfillment in other ways. And for me personally, a lot of that in the last year has been in giving back. It's in my podcast, Tuesday with Terry. It's been in helping, consulting, or coaching. It's been in mentoring. And it's also been trying to refocus on looking at a new deal or new deals and, starting from the very beginning. And what I'm trying to do is find a couple of, you may have heard this or not, your first 25 years are your learning years in your life. Your second 25 years are your earning years. Your third 25 years are in your give back years, right? In terms of how you can coach and teach a younger generation how to be successful and pass along some of the skills or things that you have found and the wisdoms that you have found in your life. And that's what I'm trying to do at this point. In my new ventures, I don't necessarily want to be the CEO as much as I want to be on the board. I want to be a strategic guy. I want to be a guy that coaches, helps with strategy, help with asking a lot of those questions, and use some of the things that I've learned over the course of my career, 35 plus 40 years, to help other people grow and develop. Do I want to be financially invested and see some of that success? Of course I do. I'd be lying if I said no. But it's a different pathway. Is instead of me getting up, at 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night and working 12, 14-hour days, we spend a lot of our time working long hours to try to improve our wealth. And then we spend a lot of our wealth later on in life trying to focus on our health. And I would tell you that none of that is worth it. Without your health, you have nothing. You can have all the money in the world, but if it doesn't cure a disease, if it doesn't cure a problem, it's meaningless. So take care of your health, take care of your family. It's obviously easier to say that now that I look back at it than it is when you're in that phase of your life. But take care of the things that are really important. Nobody dies at the end of their life regretting that they didn't spend more time at work. They regret they didn't spend more time with family. So just try to carve that. Be the architecture of your dream. Be the architecture of your life. Design the life that you want, the time that you want to work and the time that you want to play and the time that you want to spend with family. And, my wife says to me all the time, how much is enough? When's enough? And blah, blah, blah. My point is, is it great to have, the dollars and cents? And the answer is yes. That creates some stability. But it's not great if you're not happy with yourself. It's not great if you're not happy with your family. If you haven't picked up the phone lately, and I say this in all sincerity, and called your mom or called your kids or talked to your long lost friend, man, I'm telling you, those are time well spent in things to do that make the business, it makes the money, it makes the opportunity even that much more rewarding, because going it alone is never fun. It's always more fun to do it with a group of people. Bring your family along, bring your friends along with you.
Absolutely. Very wise words. Well, Terry, it's been a pleasure having you on. As we wrap up here, can you tell our listeners where they can listen in on Tuesdays with Terry and where they can connect with you?
Yeah, you can go to TuesdayWithTerry.com. You can I've got over 150 podcasts there. I speak about leadership, Devin. I speak about sales and marketing. I speak about scaling businesses. I talk a lot about self-empowerment, how to be the best version of yourself. But TuesdayWithTerry.com. You can find me on Spotify, Anchor, Apple, any of those for podcasts. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Look for Tuesday with Terry on any of those pieces and parts. And again, if you find me there, you can find me on LinkedIn. But happy to chat with anybody. Happy to share some experiences. Happy to help other people become successful as well. And you can do that in a small way or a bigger way, however people see it. But anyway, thank you, Devin, for having me on today. It gets me excited to talk about my success, and you did a great job helping me to do that. I appreciate it. I get fired up sometimes, and you certainly brought out that piece in me today. So thank you.
Good. I love it. I love to hear it, Terry. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on. I'll make sure that we link all that down in the show notes for our listeners. And man, Terry, thanks again. I appreciate it. For our listeners, until next time,